Hello everyone, and a very good morning to all of you. Sorry for a bit of delay. We were experiencing some technical issues. So let's start with today's session. So today's session is something that has been requested by you guys. It is a touch-free sanitizer dispenser. Now, recently we have noticed an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases, and keeping all that in mind, we must abide by the laws that the safety laws that the government has put in for us to abide by. So we should always make sure that we are maintaining social distancing with others and wearing face masks at all time and maintaining a proper and hygiene and maintaining cleanliness. So yeah, let's get started. So let me just shift over to my presentation. Yep. Okay. Yes. So let's talk a little about the assembly. So the assembly is basically a smart lab based out of N5 since December 2014. And over the course of around 5 years, we have conducted 250 free workshops. Now, I must remind you that these workshops are totally free and we don't charge you anything for that. Now, technically, these workshops used to be on premises at N5. We have been having all the workshops at 11 a.m. on Saturdays ever since December 2014, and they were usually done in 5. But now things have changed due to the COVID-19, the pandemic, and we have shifted to online, keeping in mind the security of all the safety of all the attendees and the presenters. So these workshops are categorized into 3 broad categories. We have the hack workshops, the code workshops, and the data science workshops. Now, workshops like today's that deal with hardware, or any workshop involving IoT, for that matter, embedded systems, would be categorized as a hack workshop. And code workshops are the workshops that are totally coding workshops, and also dealing with software APIs or gamings or building an app, or all those kind of workshops are categorized as code. Now, lastly, we have the third category, which is data science. And it is quite self-explanatory, but it covers all topics that are like machine learning related, AI related, or big data. All that topics are covered under this category. Our target audience are students, professionals, and entrepreneurs, but we are more than happy to welcome anyone who is interested in our workshops. Our workshops focus on smart technology and practical applications. A good example of this would be today's workshop, which is a very good example of the practical application of a device. So, and you can also know more about us on our forum, which is members.theassembly.ae. Don't forget to tag us on our social media pages. We are very active on our social media pages. You can follow us on our social media to know more insights about the workshop and teasers and stuff like that. So stay tuned to our social media pages. We are there on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even YouTube. Now, let's talk about some of the preventive measures that we can take against COVID-19. These are according to the World Health Organization, and I'll be just listing the top 3. So the first one is to use or to wash your hands using soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Now, this might not be very convenient for everyone at all times, because sometimes you might be traveling or you might be in a place where you don't have access to soap and water, and in those times the World Health Organization recommends that you use an alcohol based hand rub or sanitizer. That is what inspired today's workshop, because we also need to make sure or avoid contact with other people. And if we have a device which everyone is pressing and dispensing the sanitizer from, that defies the purpose of having no contact. So we automated the process just so that you can just put your hand below it and it will dispense the liquid to you. So the second and the third are very simple, like very Explanatory: you have to maintain social distancing and wear safe mask at all times. This is not just for your own safety but for the safety of others and as well as your loved ones, because I must remind you that this virus has taken over 1 million lives globally, so we must take it very seriously and abide by the social distancing or safety laws. Now this is a pie chart that is a result of a survey that was conducted in 2020 by Statista, and in this survey there were 2000 people aged 18 years or above who were surveyed about the effectiveness of hand sanitizers against the COVID-19. And as you can see, around 44% of the people who were surveyed said that the sanitizer is very effective or against the spread of COVID-19, and 43% were not sure whether it's effective or not, but they said it was somewhat effective. However, the point is not to debate on whether hand sanitizer is effective against the COVID-19 or not, but we must keep ourselves, we must take all the precautions that we can to protect ourselves and our loved ones. So yeah, that's what we are going to be doing in today's workshop by building a device that helps in maintaining the safety and cleanliness. So yeah, as for the parts list for today's workshop, the parts list is very small and concise. We have infrared sensor at the top, and then we have the most important thing is the MG995 servo motor, and we have 3D printed parts for the case. Now the case is designed entirely out of 3D printed parts. You can find all the parts you will be able to find the parts in the description below in some time, as well as the code. And the Arduino Uno. So Arduino Uno is not something that we are very strict with. You can go ahead and use Arduino Nano. In fact, I have used Arduino Nano in the device itself, but for the demo purposes I'll be showing you using Arduino Uno. But however, you don't need to worry because the wiring is exactly the same for both of them. So yeah, let's move on to the wiring diagram then. So this is the wiring diagram for Arduino Uno, but this wiring diagram will remain the same no matter you use Arduino Uno or Nano, because the thing is, the only thing we need to keep in mind is that for the servo motor's output pin we must connect it to a PWM pin. So we have connected that to digital pin 9 over here, and the infrared sensor pin can go anywhere, so that's on digital pin 7. And it so happens to be that the digital pin 9 is also a PWM pin on Arduino Nano, so these exact wiring will work on both Arduino Uno and Nano, and I've tried and tested it out, so you guys don't need to worry about that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started with the wiring and the hardware. So let me just shift over to my hardware camera. Okay, so here we have all the hardware that we'll require for today's workshop. We have the motor over here, servo motor, then we have the infrared sensor, just a second, I think the hardware camera is not properly working. Let me just check what's the issue with that. Alright, so sorry for the delay. We were facing some issues with the camera, but now we have fixed that. So let's start with the wiring. So here we have Arduino Uno, then we have the infrared sensor, and here we have the servo motor, and of course we have a lot of jumper cables to connect them. So one thing that you need to make sure is the sensitivity of the infrared sensor. So if you take a screwdriver and you see a screw over here, you can just turn it to the left to decrease the sensitivity, or like if you turn it all the way to the left, then what happens is it makes it more, or I think it makes it less sensitive, because you need to get your hand very close to the sensor to actually make it work. So I would recommend that taking it all the way to the left, or a little less, I mean almost all the way to the left. So yeah, now let's connect these wires. So the wiring is pretty simple. You connect 3 wires over here. So this is the ground, and this is, this is, connect the red wire to the VCC, and then the other one to output. So now the VCC will go on to the 5 volt for the 3.3 volts output of the Arduino. So it goes there, and ground goes to the ground pin on Arduino. And this is something important. So the black wire, or the output wire of the infrared sensor, goes into the digital pin 7 on the Arduino Uno or Nano, whichever one you're using. And now the servo motor has 3 wires: yellow, red and brown. The red one is the VCC, the brown one is the ground, and the yellow one is actually the output wire. So yeah, let's connect that, and the VCC will go to 5 volts on the Arduino. So let me just do that. Yes, it is on 5 volts, and the ground goes to the ground pin on the Arduino. And finally we have the output pin, which goes into the digital pin 9. So just connect it there. Yep, so that's pretty much it for the wiring. So it's that simple. The wiring is very simple for today's workshop, and actually the code is even very simple for today's workshop. So yeah, let's have a look at how do we assemble the 3D printed case, and what all do we need to do. So let's get into that. So for the casing of the sanitizer dispenser, we have all these 3D printed parts, and then we are going to assemble these parts and build one structure out of these parts. Now the link to download these parts will be in the description below, and you can download them from there. So yeah, let's get started. So this case, the 3D parts are printed so that all the wiring goes from inside these parts, and no wires are left hanging outside the structure. So yeah, so like let's say I'll show you what I mean later, but for the time being just follow along. So this is our infrared module, and this will go inside this 3D printed structure. So we just take the infrared sensor and push it right into it. So you might want to use a screwdriver to just push it properly in, so that the bulbs are out, and then you can just screw it in place so that it does not move. And all right, so this is done. Then we have the gear for the rack. So you have this star shaped thing that comes with the MG995 motor. You can place that inside this, and then place both of these on top of the motor, so that when we have the linear actuator, we can have just this rotate or activate the sanitizer dispenser. There you go. Then what we have is this part over here. So, this part over here will comprise of all the electronics, and maybe if you want to connect it to a power battery supply or 9-volt battery for that matter. So, your Arduino can come in over here, or if you want to use Arduino Uno, then you will have to remove this part from the 3D print and then just have this. And this hole is essentially where the wires will be coming from the infrared sensor. So, when we wire the infrared sensor, the wires will come out from here and then go in through these holes, which I will tell you about that. So, for the time being, we have this motor, we can just push this motor into this piece right here, and the wire goes from this side, which is open ended. So, just push it in nicely so that it is in there. Then once it is in there, you have this piece which helps to keep the slider in place. So, you want to make sure that this part which has the lines on it is facing towards the motor. So, just clip it in place, then you can put the slider or adjust the slider there, and yeah, that is it. So, we are done with the fixing of this part. Now, let us assume that we have wired this piece. So, I am just connecting the wires. I will just connect one wire, and the case will remain the same for the other wires as well. So, this piece over here goes on top or in front of this piece. Now, this piece has a hole in the middle because it actually goes onto the neck of the sanitizer dispenser. So, this piece is something like this, and then what we can do is we can pass in this wire from in here. So, it goes all the way up, and then even from there we can pass it through this hole right here. So, that is how the wiring will be. Now, this piece as for the assembly, this piece goes on top of it. Then we have this piece which is where all the electronics will be placed. We just attach it on the top, and finally, we will cover everything with this plate. So, this will just cover up all the electronics and everything. Again, you can see that this has holes at the back, which are there to ensure that the wires can come from the back or leave from the back, and no wires will be visible at the front except for the wire that comes out from the infrared sensor and goes to the back. So, yep, that is pretty much it. And once we run it or switch it on, then the slider will go down and it will actually press the button, and then we will get the sanitizer dispensed. So, yeah, that is pretty much it. So, yeah, now you must have a pretty good idea of how everything is assembled and how everything needs to be done. Also, a preview of how the final product would look like. So, now let us get into the coding part. So, the coding is really simple for this workshop itself. So, we do not need a lot of code for it. So, go ahead and just open up your Arduino Uno and create a new sketch. So, first things first, we need to include the library for the servo motor, and if you haven't used the servo motor before, it is probable that you won't have it there already. So, you might need to include that as well. So, I will just show you that in a while. So, before I actually do that, let me just complete this include servo.h. So, this imports the library from. So, yeah, if you do not already have this library, then you can go to tools. The way you will know if you have this library is if you do not get an error when compiling. So, try compiling it. If you do not get an error, that means you already have the library. If you do not have it, go to manage libraries under tools and just wait for it to open up, and then you can search for the name of the library. So, you can type in servo.h and it will show you the results. So, yeah, there it is, Servo. For me, it is already installed. So, install button is grayed out, but for you, if you haven't installed, you can install it by clicking install. and it shouldn't take more than a minute, so it's very quick. Now first let us have some variables which will store the sensor pin and the servo pin number. So let's create two variables for that. So sensor pin equals 7 because we wired it to 7, and if you have in case wired it to a different pin than 7, then you just change this to that. So yeah, and servo pin equals 9. So we have wired the servo pin to the output wire from the servo motor to digital pin 9 on the Arduino, so that's why we have put 9 here. If however you would like to wire it to something else, then you can change the pin number over here. Then we also need to have a variable called IR for infrared sensor to take in the readings from the infrared sensor, and here we just initialize our servo. So servo, that's it. Now we can start with the setup method. Yep. So within the setup method, we are gonna first give the pin mode to the pin. So pin mode for the sensor pin will be input. So sensor pin is basically giving us the input. So make sure that you type input using all caps. Then we will say servo dot attach servo pin, and finally servo dot write 120 to bring the servo to the motor to position before we actually start doing stuff with it. That's it for the setup method. Now we'll jump into the loop method, and even that's not very long, so we're almost half done. So yep, yes. So first we need to get the input from the IR sensor, and then so this is the logic. We need to get the input from the IR sensor, and if the IR sensor has detected the hand motion or someone asking for the sanitizer, then only and only then we should trigger the servo motion to dispense the sanitizer. So that's what we are going to type in. So we'll say IR equals digital read sensor pin, and we'll pass in the sensor pin. Then we can write an if condition to check if whether the IR sensor detects motion or not. So we can check if IR equals low. So the IR sensor basically works like normally it has an output of 1, but however if when it detects the motion or person's hand, then it gives a low output, or for that matter whenever it detects an object it gives a low output. So yeah, that's what we're going to check. So if it's a low output, then it means that we have a motion detected. So we need to start the servo. So we should say servo dot write and turn servo to 60. Then what we can do is we can add a delay. So let it stay for that matter, so it will push the actuator down and then stay for some time and then go back up to its normal position. So for that we need to add a delay. Okay, I typed in again, sorry, and we'll add a delay of 750. Okay, you can change these delays and this right angle. So yeah, I spelled it out wrong, so yeah, delay 750, and then again after 750 we can say servo dot write and bring it back to the normal position. So servo dot write and bring it back to 120 from this is from where it started. And finally we can add a few delays. So we can add a delay of 1750. Yep, yes, that's it. Yeah, that's it for the code. So that is all the code that you require for the automatic hand sanitizer. I mean, it's really easy to make it when you know how simple it is. So rather than going to the stores and buying some expensive device which costs like 50 dirhams or 100 dirhams just to automatically dispense, you this liquid, you can have it built very cheaply with your own Arduino and a few sensors. Yeah. So let's verify the code, and then I'll plug in my Arduino and upload the code to that. So yep, let me just plug in the Arduino and I'll add or upload the code there. Yep, so it compiled properly, it didn't give me any error, so hopefully it should upload it. So it's uploading, it's done uploading. So there are a few errors that you might run into when you are uploading. So if you get an error which says cannot error uploading or something like that, then you might want to come to tools and check if you have, or tools and then check if your board is the correct board. Like in my case, I'm using Arduino Uno, so it should be Arduino Uno. If you're using Arduino Nano, then it should be Arduino Nano. And the other most important thing is the port number. So most of the time what happens is when you upload the code, the port is not selected, so it's just blank, and that's why it gives an error, because it does not detect a port, or sometimes it might even have the wrong port number which is not there. So you might need to come here and then select the correct port for it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And yep, and also if you're using any 3D printing software like Cura or anything in the background that uses your serial port, so it kind of blocks things, so that doesn't work. So if you're trying to upload the code while running that's some kind of software like the 3D printing software in background, you might need to close that in order to upload the code. So yeah, that's it for the code uploading. Now let me show you guys what the final product looks like. So what I've done is I've done all the wirings and everything on this final piece, and this is what it should look like. I'll just switch to my hardware camera and show you how the final thing looks like. So yep, I hope we don't run into the same problem again, but yeah, this is what the final one looks like. So yes, it's kind of hard to show it from this angle. Maybe we should pull up the camera a bit. Yeah, okay. So this is the sanitizer dispenser. Okay, I think you should be able to see it properly now. Wait, I think that's too much zoom. Can I try zooming it out, please? Okay, now this is fine, this is better. Okay, so as you can see, we have the linear actuator over here, which is, and we have the motor behind it as explained earlier. So this will return the gear, which will in effect move this slider down and press the dispenser. So that's how the liquid will be dispensed. And here we have the infrared sensor. And as you can see, the only wires hanging out are these wires from the infrared sensor to the Arduino itself. So yeah, and all the other wirings have gone through the holes inside the 3D printed parts. So it's kind of it's like very compact thing which you can build. So let's give it a try. So let me plug in this wire. So right now I have plugged it using a USB cable for the power supply, but you can add your own, like you can add the 9-volt battery for power supply or something. So let's give it a try. The code is already uploaded into the Arduino that's sitting in there, so no need to worry about that, and let's give it a try. So yep, this is the infrared sensor, and when I place my hand below it, it should dispense the liquid to me. So yeah, I got the liquid. Yeah. Oh, okay, where's the camera? Here I have sanitizer on my hand. So this is how you can make a very compact and I must say cheap and efficient automatic hand sanitizer. And I should probably I'm sorry for the technical difficulties that we faced during the session today, but if you guys have any questions, let me quickly have a look at the chat if you have any questions. Okay, I don't think you guys have any questions, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. And that's it for today's workshop. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and feel free to check out our YouTube channel for more interesting workshops like this. We have done several workshops in the past which you can go through. And yep, so that's pretty much it. Also subscribe to our channel if you want to know more about how to make your own stuff like cool gadgets and all. So stay tuned to our social media handles and our channels so that you can know more about us. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is Amar signing off. Till next time, see you. Bye bye.